Hello, all my bottoms up babes. This is your soul master, Carrie, taking the messiness in life, mixing it up, finding the message, and serving it to you straight. Because healing isn't linear, it's layered, and sometimes the breakdown is just the beginning of your breakthrough. Here, we honor the ache, speak the life into silence, and give the broken pieces a place to belong. This is the space where truth meets tenderness, where your story is sacred and your scars are seen. So breathe deep, open up, listen up, and let the healing begin. Hello, all my bottoms up babes. I am your host, Carrie Hamilton, bringing the messiness in life, shaking it up, finding the message, and serving it to you straight. Today, my guest is John Harrell, joining us all the way from Austin, Texas. And he will be sharing a powerful story of resilience and redemption. John is a man of much wisdom and truly just someone that I adore and love with an amazing heart. John is the host of the Determined People podcast and author of Killing My Father, Then Finding Him, and is a legacy supporter of Rachel's Challenge, which is a non-for-profit agency against bullying and suicide. This is John's book, and welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, bottoms up babes.
You say it so funny. Let's begin first about talking about your childhood.
Okay.
In your book, you had mentioned that your parents had stated the words, as I quote, "You wouldn't amount to anything," and that you were nothing in which you weren't worth a damn.
I wasn't worth a damn. Yes. I grew up in a violent home. My parents probably should have never even gotten together, let alone have children. But I grew up in a home that was full of chaos and violence, and I was always on a constant state of fight or flight. Give you an example, my own dad put me in the hospital before I was 2 years old. I was a 6-month-old baby, and he beat me so bad I was convulsing, turning blue, and they had to get a man from down the street to come get my father off of me. Otherwise, he would have beaten me to death. My dad was, if you'd met my dad, you'd love him. My dad had charisma. He could get along with anybody. He would make you feel like you're walking on air after a conversation with my dad. My dad could not take his good qualities and bring them home to his family. And by the way, my mother was no walk in the park either. She was equally abusive. I do believe she was scared of him, and that's why she was that way. It's not giving her a hall pass at all. But that was the home I grew up in. I could literally, when you're a kid, you become very sensitive to noises, and you become sensitive to moods, and you observe everything, and that stuck with me, and I think that's a good thing. But I could tell when in our home, when you walked from the kitchen to the bedrooms, you would have to cross over the foyer, and there was some tile on the foyer. I could tell by the way my dad's heels clicked on the foyer what kind of mood he was in. And if he was in a certain mood, thank God we lived in a one-story home, I'd open the window and go out in the backyard because I needed to just avoid him at all costs. Not a good way to grow up, but fast forwarding, it gave me a great story to tell. So I'm always eternally grateful for my life story.
I say the same thing, as I obviously can relate as well. In certain circumstances, obviously, no one's trauma is equally alike, sure, by all means. Now, did you have siblings as well?
I did. I have a much older brother and sister. And my sister and my sister's, I think, 6 years older than me. We weren't close. We weren't raised to be close. And she's a really cool girl. She's raised 3 great kids. But she was like me. She had a backbone, and she would stand up to our dad and be a rebel. My brother's a sad case. My brother is the sweetest, brilliant, I mean off the charts brilliant guy, but he just fell into this emotional abyss, and he is not living much of a life right now. And so it's too bad because he just didn't have the guts to stand up to my dad, and I never thought this was possible until I saw my brother. I did not think that you could break someone's spirit, but my brother's spirit was completely broken. So
obviously he was equally abusive to them as he was to you. So it wasn't that it was like a certain individual that...
Oh, I could bring out the worst in people too. I mean, my parents were older when I was born. My dad was 55, my mom was 40, and I was really not a planned child, but that's not a reason to treat a child that way. And I have the energy of 10 normal humans. I operate in like a nuclear reactor. So I was 2 handfuls growing up, but again, the way my parents were cruel. It was sick, it was demented, it was just awful. And the thing is, Carrie, as you know, when you grow up, in a home like that, you don't talk about it.
Right.
Because you think you're the only one.
Yep.
What I've found is, and what caused me to actually write the book was, there is a vein going through this country of a lot of, I'll use the word dysfunctional families that have violence,
Yes.
they have abuse. It may be just verbal abuse, which is as bad as the beating actually, because the physical wounds heal, the emotional wounds scar over, and the only way to ever heal from those, you got to reopen the scar
Yes.
and heal it properly. And fortunately, I did not have sexual abuse, but I've been around a pretty good handful of people who have experienced sexual abuse, and that's a different level. So, there's a lot of, I always had the saying, I say, be kind to everyone, because we don't know what lies beneath the surface. We don't know what people are carrying around inside, and it doesn't hurt to be kind to people.
And it costs nothing. I say that to everyone. It costs you nothing to be kind. And I know that everyone has a kind nature in them, because we weren't born or raised.
Most everyone.
Yeah, but if they don't, they learned that. You were born with kindness. You were born with love. I mean,
You had to be taught the other.
Exactly.
You had to be taught the other. But anything you've learned, you can unlearn. And just last week, we're recording this in September. Last week, we saw Charlie Kirk gunned down, and I've seen some people that I know just practically dancing on the man's grave. And I'm like, where does that come from? I mean, what kind of a heart does that person have? And I always say to my friends, like I say, I would hate to live inside that person's head and heart,
Right.
because I can't imagine what that must be like.
I mean, just for anyone in general, whether it's Charlie Kirk, that's a man, that's well known, or just a neighbor. It's sad that individuals, regardless of his beliefs and systems and whatever things that people are upset
Sure.
about, just a human being who does that. I mean, it is.
That's just it. Who does that? But we live in a society nowadays that, with the internet, and with Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram, it's always, look at me. Here's an opportunity for me to show a really ugly side of myself.
Yes.
And I don't think some of them even know how ugly that it really is. So all you can do is pray for them. You don't have to hang around them. You don't have to invite them into your inner sphere, because you don't need that kind of energy. But just hope that they will have something that will turn their life around and see that's not a proper way to act. Whether you love the guy or hate the guy or somewhere in between, that's not the way to act.
Well, and to me, it's like, whatever happened to the saying, what happens on the internet's not always true, or,
It's not?
Right, exactly. And it's like, how do you know some of that stuff of the beliefs and whatever that weren't filtered or shown of him? You know what I mean? I didn't know him personally. I never met the guy. So I would only have belief of what the internet had shown. That doesn't mean that it's true, whether I liked it or not. So it's like, to even do that, how do you even know that was specifically true? Have you met the physical man, and did he say that out of his mind or voice or whatever? And that's the sad part, is that people can filter anything. People can filter even our conversation right now, and it's turned into something totally opposite of what we're talking about. And it's
some
sad.
politicians, some churches do it as well.
Yes.
I mean, there's that thing, and I'm not sure where it is. I think it might be Ephesians, but it says, wives, submit to your husbands. But they stop there. And they don't continue on. It says, husbands, love your wife like Christ loved the church.
Yes.
They leave that part out, right? And it's a perversion of Scripture is what it is. And that's dangerous. But you're right. People don't take the time. We're bombarded with so much information in this age. People don't have the time to actually vet what is true
Right.
and what is a lie. And so they'll accept a meme as absolute fact when it's a meme. It's made up. It's designed to change your thinking about something, or make you hate someone,
Yes.
or even make you like somebody who may not be a really likable person.
It's true. It's true. And it's at the same perspective, it's almost like no one wants to do the extra work, and then when people actually are nice, everyone thinks that they're up to something, or that there's like a motive under their sleeve, and it's like,
What do you want?
Yes. And it's like, wait a minute, can't someone just be kind? Like, it's sad, because no one wants to do the work within themselves to see why they are that way. And I know it is lifetime experiences that make it seem that way. Like you and I, we would have great justification to be the way that some of these people are from what we were raised in. But you can't do that. You have to seek within yourself and feel it and heal it, because it will just portray your entire life.
You got to heal it, and so many people won't.
Yes.
They want to project and think it's the other person. And until you accept the responsibility that if I want to be the best version of me, then I've got some real damage inside of here that I've got to find the root of. And when I remove the root of that damage and why I would maybe make a bad decision with regard to a relationship or something, when I remove that root, I make better decisions, which has better consequences and brings a lot more peace and quiet and contentment into my life. But it takes work. Self-work is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because you got to look at yourself, and we don't always like to look at ourselves. And
the big A word, accountability. So many people don't want to be accountable. They want to point fingers because it's easier to point fingers than to point it at yourself, and to look at yourself. And that was going to bring me to my next question was, at what age or when did you finally decide that, had it affected your life, your childhood, and when did it finally become basically, knowledge to you that you needed to heal that? I mean, did it affect marriages, children, anything like that in your nature?
Sure. It's been an ongoing process and still is. I mean, I still work on myself because I don't think you ever arrive in life. You just got to keep trying to grow and take on new things. And like you mentioned, I have the podcast, and I love doing it, and I'm insatiably curious. I left home at 18 and I did not look back. I carried a lot of insecurities into my 20s and thought that chasing women and making money was going to be what my life was going to be about. And I was pretty good at it, I was pretty good at it, but it was but there's still that hole in here. I'm trying to fill a hole that can't be filled with money and women and possessions and stuff like that. But you sort of become, to use your word, accountable. You start going, okay, what is sustaining? What is better? And there's been pivotal points, tipping points in my life. One was having children, because I will tell you, having my first child, who was born in 1993, I was scared to death. I didn't know how to be a good dad. I did not know what a good father looked like. My first male role model, and this is in the book, was Atticus Finch, the fictional character from my favorite movie and book of all time, To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, but I also said, I can either accept I don't know how to be a dad, or I can learn. And I have always been a reader, so I read every book I could find that was about parenting. And then I talked to people that had raised good children. Now I have boys, so I talked to people that were good fathers, and I would just query them with question after question after question, wanting to learn. And I would take all these things I learned, and I would adapt it to my style, my personality of who I am. Now, would my kids tell you I was Father of the Year? Oh, hell no, they would not. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes as well, but I did a lot of things right. My sons are 32 and 30 now, and they have great character, and that's all I ever wanted from them. Have good character, because character will get you through all the dark moments that you can't foresee in your life down the road. But and the other thing that really hit me was having children. I remember, and this led to me forgiving my parents long after they were dead and gone, but having children and not being able to wrap my head around, why were they so cruel? How could they be so cruel? Kids, I'd rather hang out with toddlers than most adults, because toddlers ask you a truckload of questions, but they're just trying to learn, it's pure. They're not trying to be a pest, they just want to learn. And I'm okay with that. But how could my parents have been so cruel and distant and unloving? Because I wasn't a bad kid. I was a good guy. I was a handful, believe me, but I was not a bad kid, and I just couldn't understand it. But then one day, like I say, long after my parents were dead and gone, I instead of saying how, I started saying, why were they this way? And I was able to look at my father, how he was raised, and saw why he thought his behavior, albeit wrong, was okay. And when I could see him for who he was and why he was that way, and the same thing with my mother, I was able to forgive them. And when you forgive, forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. The other person doesn't deserve it, but forgiveness is for you. And when I was able to forgive them for my life, the way they were, it's like dropping this imaginary backpack full of bricks off your back. Yes. It frees you. and things change. Now, I would never give them a hall pass because what they did was wrong, and you can't sugarcoat any of that stuff. But forgiveness is a different level than saying it's not okay.
Right. And, and that's where I think a lot of people get stuck on the fact that they're like, forgive. I would never forgive them for what they did and why they did what they did. They caused me all this trauma, all this headache, all this whatever. This is the reason I'm in this boat,
All these bad decisions, yes.
Yes, all these bad decisions. But it comes to a point where you either... do you let them consume you for the rest of your life, even when they're not present anymore? And what people don't understand is that the things that we go through, the different circumstances and experiences that we go through are like little seeds inside of our body. And it's up to us to feed it and to water it and to nurture it into becoming part of us. Or do we pull, like you said, the root out and say, no, this is not going to be a part of me. I don't want this in my life. I had that in my life. And like for me, because of the childhood abuse that I had gone through, my mind was so focused on never being the monster that I faced as a kid. So I was always overly loving because I always wanted people to feel the love I never had. And I never wanted to be that person that caused them harm or pain or suffrage or whatever word you want to use. But little did I know that I owed that love to myself too first. And I didn't do that because when you're mentally put down and you're, told you're not good enough and, in your parents' words, that you either allow it to become you or, like I said, you kill it off or pull out the root or whatever you want to say. So for me, it was like, I never wanted to be that person, so I was like overly doing it for others and not even realizing that like I needed to make myself know that I'm okay. Like I would get into people would pay me compliments and I would like find something of a flaw to be like, oh, thanks for my nice shirt. Well, but these shoes are really, beat up or whatever, or old, or, like I would make something, whatever it was.
It's hard to take compliments.
Yes. Well, I mean, it still is an adjustment for me because I'm still like, I'm always the complimenter and, I'm always the giver. But I'm slowly learning, a lot of that as I have grown into my adult years and stuff. But again, it becomes like a practice, and we are creatures of habit, and we fall into the habit of the chaos and the confusion and whatever you want to call it, because that's our comfort. And not that we want it to be our comfort, we make it that because anything outside of that makes us uncomfortable.
That's right. Normal behavior becomes uncomfortable.
Yes.
It just doesn't make sense. I will tell you this, that when I was a teenager and I was alone because my brother and sister were gone from the house, and the abuse really amped up. And I think my parents really realized that the end for them was on the horizon, right? Because the only thing holding them together was they had children together. And they did divorce after I left home. But I remember having these conversations in my head in my room at nighttime. Music became one of my places I escaped to, and I love music to this day. It's one of those things that connects us. There's so many good things that come from music. But I would have these conversations in my head, and I would just be so angry, but I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't say what I was saying inside my head to anybody. And I hated my existence, I hated my parents, I hated my life, and I hated God, and I told him on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, I thought God was punishing me because that made sense to me. I understood punishment. That was the world I lived in. Now, a couple of things I share with audiences I speak to, and as I talk about this, I said, number one, God wasn't punishing me. What I didn't know about the character of our Creator at that time that I learned later on was He wasn't punishing me. In fact, everything I felt, He felt right along with me. I just didn't know it. But the other thing which I think is more remarkable, Carrie, is God can take a punch, because I hit Him hard and He never hits back.
Right?
He never hits back.
It's true.
He never hits back. But he can, He'd rather have you just lay into Him and tell Him what you're frustrated about, what you're angry about, how you're feeling, good and bad, but just lay into Him rather than put on one of your, omnipotent Creator of the universe, one of these stupid spiritual word prayers that you think is going to make you, make Him hear you more. probably is laughing his ass off when he hears that. But it's not, because that's not being, you being you.
Right, authentic.
But I learned these things much later in life, because I really just thought God's punishing me. I understood that. But the thing is, I didn't know what I'd done. I was a good kid. I didn't know what I had done. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if you just tell me what I've done, I'll stop doing it. But just, you don't get those answers. He's not talking directly to me.
Right. Right. Well, one of the things that you had mentioned just right now that I want to touch base on, and I see this a lot being a life coach, is so many individuals that are in these toxic marriages or relationships, whatever you want to call them, and because they have children, they will stay in their misery. And they'll tell me, well, we have kids, so I just put up with it for the kids. Mm-hmm. And, they don't touch me, they don't sleep with me, they don't whatever, I'm miserable, but I'm going to do it because of the kids. And I want to just say, yes, I want to just say right now, please, for the love of God, do not stay in those toxic situations for the kids, because as I am a advocate, and obviously John here himself, you are teaching your children what love is not, and not what love is. So what your child is going to do is, as they grow into their own self and their relationships and their marriages, they are going to go after that chaos and that craziness, and they want to be the fixer-upper and the saver and the, the lover, just as myself, because they don't want people to feel those emotions that they felt with their parents always fighting and their toxic, relations. And it really is an addiction that you place in your child's head, because they know the up and the down, the adrenaline when mom and dad are going crazy at each other, and then they know the dopamine when everybody loves each other and everyone's getting along. And so you're building that chemical imbalance in your child's brain. So now when they get older, like myself, when I got married to my ex-husband, who is a police officer, and I thought, oh, well, this will be great because, I have security. And I felt that even though I wasn't connectively on a connection level with him, as far as chemistry goes, I felt that I loved him because it was secure, and I was used to dating the jocks and the jerks and the people that cheated and lied and all this other stuff, and he wasn't that way. But because I didn't fix myself, the marriage was boring to me, because I didn't have the abuse, the heightenment, the chaos, toxicity, the untrusting whatever. Like, it was normal.
All the stuff a logical person really would want.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah. And for me, I was like, I could watch paint dry right now and I'd probably be just as amused. Like, it was like horrible to me, which not because he's a horrible person, but I didn't know.
It wasn't a character flaw on his part. It was
exactly.
It was actually something wrong with you.
Yes,
yeah.
But I only knew what love was not and thought that was love. So I divorced him for that. And it wasn't until my childhood abuse and my recent, spiritual awakening and trauma and all that, after being divorced, at that point was 4 years. Now it's been 6 years, but that's where now I discovered all of this, because I had gone through the therapy in that. And again, going back to the children and all of that, another suggestion that I would say is that if you are raising kids in toxicity, like, please get them therapy and help, or a counselor or something of that nature, because for me, the childhood abuse, I was taken out of the abuse, but the abuse wasn't taken out of me.
Yeah,
and so it carried with me throughout my life until I went to a therapist. And it's not weakness, it's strength,
Absolutely.
Getting help from another individual.
It is the bravest thing you can do.
Yes, it really, really is. And that is where I discovered all of this, And now, sure, do I feel bad, like with my ex-husband and that? I do, but we are we always were good co-parents, but now it's like we have that, friendship too, as far as being co-parents, and it has smoothed things over per se. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have felt that way had I gone to therapy in my teens or, whenever throughout life, and obviously I wouldn't have entertained those types of people either.
Well, I don't mean to rub salt in the wound. I'm glad you got away from it alive,
yes.
but after divorcing him and starting to date, you got what you were looking for.
Oh yeah, I did. I sure got what I was looking for. But you know what?
I've had a similar experience, so I'm talking to Noah about the flood here.
Right? But you know what though, John? as much as it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Actually, my childhood abuse wasn't even as bad as my adult abuse. Like, that was how bad it was. But I wouldn't change it for anything, because now it made me who I am sitting here today, and the openness and the vulnerability that I can share with other people, and especially being able to hear things from individuals and be like, hey, you're not telling me something I haven't been through myself, or something that I haven't heard.
You learn how to spot it.
You do.
You know how to spot. I remember I was speaking, as you know, I do a lot of volunteer speaking in Texas prisons.
Yes.
And I remember speaking in a women's prison, and you hear some awful things. I mean, some really awful things that have happened to people. And one lady was talking about how her husband had died. He was in prison, but her two daughters, who were 16 and 15, had taken their own lives because he had sexually abused them. And I remember I walked home. I was standing in front of her, and she wouldn't make eye contact, but she goes, "But it's okay." I go, "Hold on, it's not okay." And she goes, "Oh, it's okay." And she do her hand like this, and I recognize it because I've done that. And so I said, "No, look at me. It's not okay.
Yes.
It's okay to face it and to heal from it. But what your ex did to your daughters is not okay."
Right.
And I encourage you to, it's not too late for you. Just work through it, heal from it. There's good people here that are willing to help you. And she actually maintained eye contact and got tears in her eyes. These are kind of moments I'm so grateful to have.
Yes.
And if I'd had a normal childhood growing up, I'd have no relatable story to talk about in prisons. And because of the way I was raised, it's relatable to about 90% of the population.
It's true. It's true. And on the flip side of that, you can tell individuals that have been through trauma and individuals that haven't either, because they are almost the same way. They're like, well, at least it's this now, or at least it's, whatever. Like, they don't even want to hear it. But people that have been through trauma are like, no, tell me, like, I want to hear these things, because you can relate so much. And it's like, even though we went through the therapy, we went through the healing, no two stories are alike. And so it's so, it still feels so heartfelt when I hear, not that I like individuals going through trauma, but it feels so heartfelt when I do talk to individuals that have been through traumatic situations, because it assures even myself and them that this is life. Like, it's like a blessing almost that you can be in front of these individuals and just tell them that, listen, you don't have to fight these demons in silence and by yourself. And there's nothing that you can say that we haven't heard from either other people or that we've unfortunately experienced.
Experience. When you grow up like we did, you don't talk, you don't trust, you don't feel.
Right.
You numb your feelings out. And when people hear you openly talk about what your life had been like, it encourages them to open up. When you go in unguarded with people, I can't tell you how many incredible stories I've heard from my seatmate on an airplane. 3.5-hour flight from Austin to Los Angeles. People will tell you their life story. Now, I'm a safe person because they'll never see me again. But I've had women tell me, one woman told me that she had been raped 40 years prior and had never told her husband.
Wow.
I'm the only outside person she had ever told. And you hear these things, but I said, well, how does it feel to talk about it? She goes, it actually feels really good. I said, well, I encourage you to find somebody to talk to about it. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's a therapist,
yes,
maybe it's a trusted friend, but keep talking. Talking does wonders for healing from things. And don't be afraid to stare into the abyss, face those demons, because they're much bigger in our minds than they really are. They weaken when you address them.
For sure, absolutely. And it's crazy because I actually just saw today on like social media that all the recent people, the school shootings, Charlie Kirk, all those, everybody was shot in the neck, every single person. And it's like, wow, when you think about that, the devil wants to silence you. They don't want you to talk about, and that's the same with your abuser. Your abuser doesn't want you to talk because what you're keeping the silence for is them.
Yeah.
You're not keeping silence for yourself. Your silence is for them. So having a voice is escaping the demon that you're fighting, and I say to everybody, like, you know, people will make comments like, you know how there's individuals that are like, say on Facebook or whatever all the time, and they're giving all their business out there, and people are like, oh my God, this lady like literally tells everything. And I say to these people like, hey, listen, people vent on social media because they have no one, and that's them using their voice.
Good point, yeah.
As much as it may seem annoying, or maybe they're, you know, whatever, obnoxious, whatever the case may be, that just shows that that person has no one to talk to, and you should actually feel blessed that you are connected in some sort of way, and maybe say to that person, hey, I want you to know that you're loved, and that if you need someone to talk to, I know you put whatever on social media, but hey, listen, if you need someone, come talk to me. Because even myself, I couldn't say too much because I was in a court case, a criminal court case, but I would vent here and there, just like small memes or like things I would see about domestic violence, things in that nature, and I would share them. And I've actually had people, even myself, message me and be like, hey, you know, just, you're giving them power by talking, and you're giving them, you know, by saying your business, it's showing that you're weak with them by giving that attention. And I'm like, I will not allow you to silence me, and I'm not sitting here blasting my business. Yes, obviously you could put the puzzle pieces together, but me saying this, like, you know, there's only so much I could say at that point, because like I said, I was in a civil, in a criminal case. But you know, no, I need to be the voice, because keeping it silence, who are you keeping that silence for? Do you know what I mean?
I think anybody that's going to be critical of that probably has their own stuff that they're trying to deal with, and so it's their way of not having to look at themselves, right? And all you can do is just wish them the best, really. You know, it doesn't do any good to fight back. Just you do what you need to do, and you're doing things the right way. So you're putting it out there, and it's encouraging people to consider, well, maybe there are other people out there who have dealt with what I'm dealing with right now.
Yes, absolutely. And now, John, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I see and hear a lot of times men, they feel that it's weak for them to seek help, and like that, you know, it's hard for them to admit that they need help. Or also, you know, men determine their worth based on their performance and what they could do to provide, and they feel that if they vocalize their struggles, that it makes them less worthy, let's just say. What would you tell any gentleman that may be watching today? What would you tell them as far as advice for stepping up to the plate and getting the help and not stuffing it down? I mean, a lot of times, I know even from my era, you know, you say play baseball and like you get hurt and the dad's like, brush it off, let's go. You know, like you were always having to stuff your feelings, you know? And so what would you say to the average man that's, you know, listening and maybe is being one that's stuffing his issues?
Sure. So there's a variety of ways I can take this. First of all, men typically don't have friends. They have work buddies, they have golf buddies, they have people they may go to the bar with after work once or twice a month or whatever. But those aren't friends. Friends are people that you can just share intimate, open details about your life with, and they'll just take it and hold it, and you can trust them with that. Most men don't have that. I'm very fortunate. I've got a small sphere of really good friends, male and female, that I trust completely. It's a small sphere, but you don't need a big sphere.
No.
But I'm an anomaly like that, because most men just don't have friends. They crave the, you know, for lack of a better term, intimacy, you know, that sharing of what's going on without, you know, sound like they're a gay guy or something. You know what I mean? Or weak or wimpy or whatever. And there's nothing weak at all about it. To be a fully well-rounded person, you must have all those components. Otherwise, you're only 80% of that person. Going to seek a therapist, you know, finding the right therapist is key.
Yes.
Because that person, you can talk to them, and it takes time to build trust, but you can talk to them and they won't ever gossip about it. They won't talk about it. I lead a men's group every Wednesday morning at my church. And it's probably under the guise of Bible study, and we do study some scripture and stuff. But a lot of it is just getting with you know 6, 7, 8 guys on Wednesday morning from 7 to 8, and just talking about life stuff. And I went through some really difficult periods with my 2 sons, where there's a lot of anger that they had about the way that you know, their home life when they were growing up, and And they were taking their anger out on me, which I was the safe one. I wasn't going to attack their emotions, and I understood that, and I never would retaliate. So I went through this, and I've had a couple of guys in that group that have had the same thing with their children. They stopped talking to them for a while, which was what happened with my children. But my experience gave them hope that it would not last forever. I said, just keep in contact. Don't expect them to respond to you, but send them a message once every now and then. Just say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. Hope you're well. Just send them a Bible verse. Whatever you want to do, send them something to keep that connection out there. Mm-hmm. They'll read it. They probably won't say a word back to you, but don't expect it. That way you're not disappointed. But that's a group that we've got a core group of guys that make it every week if they're in town, and the strength of that group is when we have a new guy join, I always say, okay, here's the deal. We have one rule. Whatever is said here stays here. Because we don't want you to open up about something going on in your life that might be something you talk about here and know that the group is going to hold it close to the vest, and then have somebody out talking about it on campus or something like that. Say, hey, there's that guy, and guess what he's going through. That destroys the strength of our Wednesday morning group, and we're going on 10 years now. Wow! Yeah, it's a great group of guys. We've had people come and drop in, drop out, or come back, and we've had guys Zoom in and all. There's an AA meeting at the same time across the parking lot from us, and we've had a couple of people from AA show up.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
One heroin addict shows up, and he goes, man, I'm supposed to be in that meeting across the way, but he goes, can I keep coming here? I go, of course, And he kept coming for a couple of years, so he moved away. But those kind of things are helpful. And it's for men, it's a little bit unsettling the first time you show up because you're trying to jockey for position, right? I mean, we get a lot of our position in life by what we do. 25 years ago, I stopped asking the question, when I meet somebody, what do you do? It always comes up, but I'm not going to be the one to initiate. Right. Open it up with, where'd you grow up? Tell me about your family. What do you like to do when you're not working or whatever? Just talk about other things. And again, the key is, Carrie, be unguarded with people. Mm-hmm. Drop your guard. When you drop your guard with others, it encourages them to be unguarded as well. And so for guys that are struggling with guys who are struggling with some real shit in their lives, like maybe it was abusive, find a qualified therapist. If you had addiction in your family, find someone who is addiction qualified to talk about those things, and then go to work on healing from it. Yes. Because you're not living fully if you're walking around with that imaginary backpack full of bricks. You're not living fully, and there is better life out there for you. Yes. So that's what I would say to them. Don't be afraid to do it. It's the bravest thing you can do is to reach out to somebody and say, I need help. Yes. After the pandemic, first of all, before the pandemic, mental health was already pretty fragile. Post-pandemic, it's even worse from isolation, and you see it, but even the CDC has finally recognized, it's on their website, human connection is vital for good physical and mental health. Yes. So embrace it, don't be afraid of it. If it's uncomfortable, that's good, because it means you're growing. Growth only comes in the discomfort zone. It doesn't come when you're comfortable. Yes. Growth comes when you really are feeling a little uncomfortable down here. It'll pass, but just go with it. Don't be afraid of it.
And I will say too, from a woman's perspective, if my spouse and or long-term partner, whatever you want to say, came to me,
I hate the word partner.
I know, right?
It sounds so non-committal. Like I'm not partner here.
My friend, no. But if they came to me and were like, "Hey, I just need to talk to somebody, and I don't want anyone inside of you or the kids or my aunt or uncle or whatever, sister, brother, I want to talk to someone outside." If they're a true individual that really is genuinely has love for you as just you as a person, I obviously condone that 100%. I would be like, please, like, you know, and of course I'm here for you, and I would try and ask questions, but, you know, I understand too that sometimes there's things you just don't want to talk about to that person. And so I get that, because you may be part of it, and not that it's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's something that, like, you don't do dishes and it bothers them, like, but they don't want to say it to you. Like, you don't know that. And so talking to someone outside of that, a true person that is committed to you is going to respect that, you know, and they should 100%. If not, then that tells you right there that that person is probably not for you, because anyone that is for you is going to help build you. They're not going to break you. They're going to build you.
Sure.
And so, I mean, any individual would be all on board with that, even if it wasn't necessarily at the boards of divorce or, you know,
I think a big key to that is also listening.
Absolutely.
Listen to the person. You know, when you rearrange the letters in the word listen, you get silent. I don't think that's by accident. I don't think it's coincidental. In fact, I love what Einstein said about coincidence. He said, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. But I think that listening is an art form that people have lost.
Yes.
You can have a conversation and you hear what the other person's saying, but you're thinking about what you're going to say back. That's not listening. That's just two monologues going at each other, you know? So if somebody says to you, it really bothers me that you won't do dishes. Okay. I can either do dishes, or I can get us a maid.
Or we can do separate days. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. Yeah, but the other thing is you gotta sort of give people the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe they're not aware. Maybe they're just not aware, but give them a chance at least. But don't let it fester inside of you if something's bothering you, because then it can turn into a resentment, and resentment it will almost always come out the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Something
like
small will cause an explosion, like, where did that come from? Well, I'm really angry because you didn't do the dishes, but the fact that you didn't, you know, unplug this or whatever really is what triggered that.
Yes.
You know?
And that was actually kind of with my marriage. It was festering me, and you know, I didn't feel happy. I felt lonely. Yet I'm with I'm with a husband, and why am I feeling so lonely and so lost? And then it was like little, and I kept it inside of me, and it was little things that, you know, then all of a sudden his socks on the floor were bothering me, where it didn't bother me before, but now it's bothering me now. And it was just one day, we had like a butler's pantry in our house, and it was just this one day I came down, and there was a whole bunch of coffee grounds like around because we had our coffee maker and stuff right there, and I went downstairs, and the coffee grounds were right there, and I just broke down like crying over coffee grounds. But that was like the straw of the camel's back. Like, I was just like, ah! And I remember his face like, what the hell? Like, when did you ever cry about the coffee on the coffee grounds on the table here? Like, or, you know, the
maybe you
pantry.
need some coffee, or maybe you don't.
Right?
You know?
And so, I mean, but that was just it. That was like, I couldn't, you know, hold it any longer. And it was just like, ugh, because I was also the one that cleaned the house and, you know, did all the womanly things. And so it was like, just seeing that, it was like the last straw of like not feeling worthy, even though it was something so stupid, you know, something I would never make a fuss of. That was just like it
wasn't stupid in that moment.
Exactly.
I got a friend who told me and he's got a wonderful wife, wonderful marriage, and he's got the right person married to him. He told me, he goes, she got mad at me because I left my muddy shoes on the counter. I go, well, I'm with her. You don't put your shoes on the counter,
No.
muddy or otherwise. You put your shoes in the closet, man, and if they're muddy, clean them off, man.
Right.
He goes, I knew you'd take her side. I go, well, she's right. You know? She's right.
Like,
and so now to this day, I'll ask him sometimes, I say, so have you been putting your shoes on the counter anymore? Not as often.
Yeah.
You got to stop. It's not difficult, you know.
It's so funny because even sometimes you do that not even realizing, you know, like things you just do nonchalantly, and you're like I said, it was just like.
Well, a bachelor's going to walk in, put his shoes on the counter. He's not going to think about it, right?
Right. Yes.
But when you've got somebody else that you're living with, then there may be some other considerations. And we all know the one about the toothpaste tube. Somebody squeezes, one partner squeezes from the end, the other one from the top.
Just on the toilet seat.
Just get 2 tubes of toothpaste. You
right.
know? It's not. Most fixes are simple. You just got to take the time to do them.
But it's little things like that you let fester you and just brew and brew and brew and brew, and then it's like,
then
boom,
it comes out.
It just comes,
It's
yes.
like a nuclear explosion.
And it's really something totally opposite that really is the issue, you know. Let's talk about your podcast.
Sure.
The Determined People podcast. Why did you decide to start the podcast, and what are your intentions of having your podcast?
Sure. So go back to May, June of 2020. I had 12 people, seriously, 12 people who didn't know each other and were not connected in any way, all said to me within a 2-month period, said, you need to start a podcast. I'm like, what would I podcast about? I, never even considered it, right? So I did what I would normally do. I bought a podcast microphone and stuck it up on the shelf, and walked by it every day. Well, one day about December of 2020, I'm like, I either need to stick this thing on eBay and sell it, or I need to start a podcast. So don't rule that out. And I started thinking, what would I do a podcast about? Now, I will tell you this, and I say to the audience, the bottoms up babes, or the bubs for short, that I've always been the person that people come to for inspiration. They come to if they need to be lifted up. It's just in my nature, and that's just how I am. I'm eternally optimistic, ad nauseum, actually. But it's just how I am. I'm always looking at things as opportunities and the bright side, if you will. And so I thought, I'll do a podcast about that. So I do it a little bit differently, and I record every day. It's a 60-second message of the theme of the show, which is spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world in desperate need of those things. Yes. Because our world needs those things, especially hope right now. So I record a 60-second message every day, and then when I have somebody that I want to interview and talk about, share their story on the interview on the YouTube as well as the audio feed, I'll interview them and get them to tell their story. So I'm insatiably curious, so I love to do research and find out about the subject that I'm going to talk about, and then let the guests come on and just share their story, because we find ourselves in the stories. We connect through stories. And so if somebody, here's your story, for example, says, wow, I was abused, and look at this girl, she's turned her life around from that, she's healed from that. Maybe if that person did it, maybe I can too. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's about, is just trying to put something good into the world, because there's enough people out there trying to tear you down and tear down or cut you down or criticize you or whatever. And there's constructive criticism, and then there's just the armchair quarterbacking, the amateurs. Constructive criticism, I can take that all day long. And people do criticize me for putting out encouraging messages. I have people that literally, a couple of people that are just always critical of anything I put out, and I'm just like, you know what? Maybe you're the person that really needs to grasp onto this, right. And I would hate to live inside your head and heart, because you must be a really miserable person. Yes. And I've had a lot more people, many more people that have messaged me saying, hey, thank you. You gave me exactly what I needed today in this moment. And I don't know, if I write something really, really good, Carrie, it comes from God, because I'm just not that good. I say the same thing. The fact I'm even writing was just by one of those coincidences, right? And because I never wrote anything, and now I write every single day. So.
Mm-hmm. But I also too, again, going into the life coaching, I tell people journaling, writing, get a notebook. It doesn't even have to be a fancy schmancy thing that says journal on it. Do that, because getting those feelings out of your mind, out of your body, expressing them, rather than writing a text message to that jerk that broke up with you or that cheated or whatever, write it on there, write it on the journal, and just literally just expose it all on there. Because what is the piece of paper going to do? Walk around and tell your business? You know what I mean? Or is it going to broadcast on there? No, it's a piece of paper. You could even burn it if you want to, or cut it up. But it gets so much of that out, that junk out, because negativity really is poisonous, and it will grow. That's why it's so easy to find, because you can go on with negativity all day long. It can just fester everywhere, and just everybody can tear each other down.
It's out there. It's everywhere. And did you know that actually physically writing hits the same spot in the brain as meditation does?
Well, I believe that because with anxiety, they tell you to color.
Interesting.
Because it helps soothe. That's why if you've ever been on an airplane and you see people either coloring or doing those books, like, because that's all like the same type of, it relaxes that.
I probably never noticed, but I will now. Usually if it's a little kid or something, but that's what they do. But it's like I can't meditate. If I try to meditate, I'm out. You know, I just fall dead asleep. But I can write, and so I journal. I actually physically write things.
That's good.
It's not talking to text. It's actually physically writing things.
Yes.
But you're right. You get it out, and it helps process things in a different way than sending a text to that ex and you know, who may have cheated on you, whatever, and that's usually a two-worder that ends in you. But you know, but that's not healthy either. It's not good for you because you may feel good in that moment, but that's just the dopamine.
Yes.
It's not real. It's not the authentic you. You feel good, and then you go, oh man, I don't feel good, and that just hurts you. It doesn't. They don't care.
I tell people all the time, even write your memo thing on your phone versus like the actual text box. If you feel you really gotta like move your fingers and write that text, write it to the memo thing because you're not sending it there, you know? Because 9 out of 10 times you're gonna kick yourself in the butt that you sent that text and that you're showing that you care or whatever it is that, you know, that you wanted to get your point across. It does. It harms you.
You know, it's just you know, texting and email have become people's favorite forms of communication. I'm like, that's not communication.
No.
A text message is a quick check-in. Like you text me, you're on your way over here. And so, good, I know you're on the way and I know when to look for you and all. But it's not a conversation.
Right.
It doesn't take the place of that. Yeah, yes. It's like, again, like the CDC said, human connection, having conversations, talking with people, and then actually listening, but making it a two-part conversation where you actually connect with somebody.
Yes.
Those are so rewarding, and when you find people that you can have those kind of conversations with, hold on to them because they're a true treasure in your life.
And very, very hard to find.
They're very hard to find. Yeah.
We're all in a fast-paced world here, and like, you know, I actually said this this morning when I had another guest that I did a podcast with. I said to them, we are in a convenience world, so everything is fast-paced, everything is convenient. But one thing that will never, ever, ever be convenient in this world is love. And whatever umbrella you want to put, compassion, kindness, affection, emotion, whatever you want to put under that umbrella of love, that is a commitment. That is you can never conveniently love someone. Then you're using them, or then they're a supply, they're a whatever. That's not love. That's filling a void, a gap of some sort of whatever that you're trying to fill. Love is a connection and a commitment, and it needs to be reciprocated on both ends to be complete. And that's why so many people, like, everyone's like, oh, this dating world is such a you know, shit pool and or whatever, you know, like
it's a minefield, man.
Yeah,
you know?
they're like, it's a horrible, like somebody pissed in the swamp
missing
here.
a limb or something, you know?
But I tell them, I say, because everybody being creatures of habit, we are in a convenient world. So right at that moment, oh, what did you want? Oh, you want just a companion to eat dinner with? Convenience. Oh, you want someone to get to bed with you? Convenience. Oh, you want someone just to listen to you bitch and moan today? Convenience. Like, that's not love. That's not care. That's not a commitment. And that's not someone that's even your friend, realistically, if they're just going to fill that void. And that's why it's so easy to pick up someone online and bring them to bed, because that's what that world is a convenient world. And now I know I'll probably get people that are like, that's not true, I married my husband from online dating. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You're the very slim few.
You're 10% of the population of online daters.
Yes, but realistically, it's not for that. It's for a convenience thing. And you will never be full committed or in something of love and true genuinency, being love, if you have it as a convenience. It just never will work.
You bring up something that I really want to expand on here, and that is you've got to, first of all, be content with being with yourself.
Yes.
You've got to, and it goes back to what you said earlier, you've got to love yourself. You've got to care for yourself in a healthy way. You know, we all know people that are egotistical, that love themselves more than they probably should, and really in not a good way. But you've got to be content, you know. And say that, and I've actually found a lot of contentment in my life. I always say I'm more ambitious now than I've ever been in my life. There's a lot of things I want to accomplish before I check out of here. But if I didn't ever accomplish another thing, I'm okay.
Yes.
And there's a lot to be said for the peace that comes from being content. But the fact that I'm content with myself, I don't have to go out with a girl. I don't have to go date because, and there's a period of time in my life where I did. I felt like a lot of my worth came from other people.
Well, and that's the thing is and it's not that it's you or we were raised this way. The school systems, all of that. We are raised to get better, do better, get more. Oh, that sales goal is met. Now your sales goal is quadruple. Push yourself. Come on, And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't motivate yourself. I mean, I don't want it, I don't want people to be like, oh, lazy over here. Because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to be lazy at all. But because of that, we are constantly seeking outward because that was how our mentality was. That's how we were built as humans because that's how the mentality is out here.
That's the culture of the United States.
Yes. And so it's like, so now with love, we look outside for that as well. So here we're lost with it inside of ourselves, but we're taking a person. Okay, maybe that's not it. Maybe this guy with money over here. Oh, wait, nope, that's everything he bought me. I still feel, lonely. Oh, wait, maybe it's this. You're constantly filling that void because you're looking for it outside of yourself. And the real truth is within you because you complete yourself. Everyone else compliments you. So if they're not on your length and your level and whatever, then they're not complimenting you as who you are as an individual. And that's where people get mistaken because they're constantly seeking outward to fill that void when they need to fill it themselves. And until you do that, until you feel, you heal, you fill your own cup, you will constantly be in relationships that don't work because until you fill yourself, you can't fill other people. You know what I mean?
And this time is different.
Right. And it's like, you'll constantly be looking for something else because you're not full yourself until you could finally be in your own element. And trust me, I had that codependency issue myself. And I remember it was like 2 weeks and I was like laying on my floor in my room and I would cry every day and I just felt so like, oh my God, I'm so miserable. And then it was like just something snapped in me. And then now I'm like, oh man, maybe I healed too much because the minute someone's like, can I take you to dinner? I'm like, oh, I want to throw up. I'm fine by myself. Like now I'm the opposite. I'm like, I enjoy not answering anybody, not talking to anybody, just sleeping in my own bed. I'm like, maybe I healed too much, but
it's funny. It's funny.
It's true.
I may write one of my daily blogs about that. I healed too much. The dumbest movie line ever comes from Jerry Maguire, where Tom Cruise says to Renee Zellweger, "You complete me."
Yeah.
No, you moron, you're complete already.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You're complete already, but they're selling a movie. I get that. I get that.
Well, and they're trying to, boost it with somebody else. But the truth really is, in what better version knowing that you are so loved by the one and only, like our creator of life in general, what more love do you need from that? You don't. You need to find that love within yourself and see it and feel it and know it. And then it's like, wow, I really, I tell people, you came in this world alone and guess what? You're leaving the same way. So stop counting on everybody else. Stop, seeking outside of yourself because that isn't coming with you, whether it's a thing or a person or whatever noun you want to put into it. You have to be happy with yourself. And then and that's the thing too, is like people go out and they seek all that. When you start actually doing for you and filling that cup, let's just say, of love and care and completeness inside of yourself, everything else just attracts to you. You don't even go and find it. They're just like, hey, did you want to go to the movies? You're like, well, that was weird. I was thinking about going to the movies. It seriously, doesn't it attract to you? It's like, what the heck are these people inside of my head?
My psychotherapist said something to me years ago, early on in psychotherapy. And I'm skeptical. I think scientifically, which means I question everything. But I have observed that this is true. He said, the healthier I become mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, the healthier people I'm going to attract into my life. And I've found it to be true.
Yes.
It's true. And so, like I say, I've got this small sphere of really good people that are friends of mine that I am very grateful for because they're really good people. They're all successful, but it has nothing to do with what they do. It's who they are.
Right.
I saw a bumper sticker, recently. It said, "The one with the most toys wins." No, the one with the most toys, he's going to die too. Okay? He does.
It's true. He dies too. We all.
It's all the measuring stick, though. But if you go to other cultures, see, the culture of the United States is greed. But if you go to like Mexico, you go to Lebanon or European countries, they're all family oriented. They're togetherness oriented. They get out and they do stuff together. Whereas the United States is like, we're trying to get more. How fast can I get from here to here?
Yes.
And we're impatient. So
very impatient, and that's so true because my parents had moved to, even just in Tennessee, they're still in the U.S., but it's slower there, and it's there are a lot of retired people and individuals and stuff over there, and it's like you're so used to fast pace. Like when if I go out to breakfast or something in Tennessee, I'm like, holy hell, did they kill the cow? Like, what is going on? Where's the food? Because I'm so used to, like, out here in the city, life is so like blah, 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 blah. And it's like you would never succeed in Chicago with that kind of service, And I mean, really, actually, even in Texas, it's like way slower than it is here. Here, it's like so fast. I mean, there's individuals that are like, I would never move to the city because I feel like, like everything's just fast paced.
Of course, everybody in Austin's high. That's why they move so slow. but I, some of the small towns I travel to where the prisons are, they're just friendly, and they're just. It's nice to be in this small town with values that are just. They're not in a hurry.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about your book, Killing My Father, Then Finding Him. Number one, how could listeners find this book? Is there...
Okay. No, number one, before that, I did not kill my dad, okay? It's a metaphor for killing the voices of doubt, insecurity, and worthlessness that I carried into my adulthood. So it's on Amazon, and it's paperback as well as the Kindle version. And then Finding Him is actually a spiritual piece. It's not a religious book. It's mainly just observations of things. A lot of it, parts of it, I should say, are bits of my life story as well. But I have a chapter on forgiveness. I have a chapter on judgment. I have one on faith. I have a handful of different observations in there. But it's on Amazon. I'm writing a second book right now.
Really?
I'm writing it at the pace of frozen molasses, extremely slow.
On the Tennessee version of
the version of the next book. And so I've got a great title, and I really have a lot of stuff in here that I want to get out.
Nice.
And I've had people tell me, and again, I'm very humble about this, I've had people tell me I have a unique voice in the way I express things. And it's not motivation or rah-rah or crap like that. I think that's kind of hokey, but it's just things designed to make people think, designed to think, and maybe think about ways that they can improve their lives and see the world differently and see it with through a lens of less judgment and more compassion and understanding and kindness, if you will.
Yes.
You can be kind and still not lose your manhood. I mean,
True.
you can. And women, I think that women are looking for a guy who is kind, compassionate, strong, solid, the spiritual leader of the family. Men are called to lead the family spiritually. And that's evidenced by when God went looking through the Garden of Eden. He talked to Adam. He didn't talk to Eve. Eve was not a lesser one, but he spoke directly to Adam, and that's a symbol that the man is supposed to lead the family spiritually. And people, women crave that.
Yes.
And there's a giant void of that in our culture.
It's true. I mean, and it's... As much as like I'm an independent person, I've realized that even sometimes men have an issue with that because they want someone that feels, that depends on them. They want to feel that they're needed. Yeah. Where then on the reverse side of it, women, like for me, it's like if a man can't even hang a picture, I'm like, okay, like he's just too fruity for me too, he's just not manly enough for me. And I know it sounds so stupid, but it's like, it's true. Like, you kind of have those perceptions. Like I need a man that can actually do things around around the house. Now, I'm not saying that he has to rewire a whole electric system and put in this, whatever, or build a whole new fortress for us. Or,
yeah, we have electricians for that.
Right?
I don't mess with electricity.
No, I mean, and especially being like a single woman, it's like I've become more domesticated than I've ever really wanted to be in life. But, and again, I'm not rewiring a house or nothing, but, it's like if they can't even hang a picture frame, I'm kind of like, ooh, it just makes me feel like, ew, I don't want to be the man of the house,
Of course not.
and vice versa. Like I get it, where some with independency and stuff, they feel like, oh, well, what am I just gonna, float around the house and not do anything? I get that. I get it. I want to talk about Rachel's challenge.
Sure.
So tell me what it is, first of all, and how it came about, how you got involved, how you even brought it into your book here. Let's just talk about it all overall.
I will give you a disclaimer. I can talk about Rachel's Challenge for 24 hours on one breath, and I really can. I love the organization. Rachel's Challenge is a charity. It was formed about 26 years ago after the Columbine killings. Rachel was the first child killed at Columbine High School on April 20th of 1999. She left her family with 6 journals, and in those journals, her writings were things like she wrote a paper called "My Ethics, My Codes of Life," and so sort of the mantra of the organization is something she wrote in that paper, and she said, "I had this theory." I'm sorry, let me back up. The greatest form of compassion humans have to show is love. I had this theory that if one person goes out of their way to show compassion, it will start a chain reaction of the same. You never know how far a little compassion can go, a little kindness can go. And Rachel's Challenge has been starting chain reactions of kindness and compassion worldwide for over 25 years now. So it's mainly in schools, elementary, middle, and high schools. They have a presenter that will go in and they will share Rachel's story. And they use multimedia. They'll show some of the video to middle and high school, not to elementary, of the Columbine films of kids walking out with their hands above their heads, but being escorted out by SWAT. You'll hear the 911 call from the librarian. That particular day, 1 teacher and 12 students lost their lives. And it's at that time, it was the worst school shooting in history. There have been worse since. One happened in Texas, May of 2022, the Uvalde elementary school shooting. So we're going to have another school shooting. I do know that Rachel's Challenge, the program, there are 9 documented Columbine copycats that have been averted because of her story. Wow. In other words, a kid was going to go in and shoot his school up, but decided not to because of Rachel's story.
Wow.
There's 40 programs in schools. I don't know of another one that can say the same thing. Anything that will stop violence in school, anything that will change the heart of a student, which is what Rachel's story does. It hits the goodness in the heart level that we all have inside of us. And you can't prove it, but I promise you there's something spiritual about her story.
Absolutely.
You cannot miss it when you hear her life story and some of the crazy things that happened. There's a story of a man named Frank Amedia. Frank Amedia was an Ohio businessman. 3 or 4 weeks after Rachel's funeral, which was CNN's largest viewing audience in history, more than Princess Diana, take that into consideration.
Wow.
Still their largest viewing in history. A few weeks after her funeral, Frank called Daryl, Rachel's dad, and said, "Mr. Scott, my name's Frank Amedia. I'm a businessman in Cincinnati, and I just want to tell you, first of all, how sorry I am for what your family is going through. But the second thing is, ever since your daughter's funeral, I have had a dream every night. It's the same dream. I see 2 eyes. It's your daughter's eyes, and they're crying teardrops. And they're crying into something, but I can't tell what that is. Does this mean anything at all to you?" He said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but it doesn't mean anything to me." He said, "Well, please, if it ever comes to light, write down my contact information and call me, because I have the dream every night." He goes, "I will." Daryl will tell you he came this close to throwing that man's contact information in the trash, thinking, "I'll never talk to this guy again." About 8 or 9 days later, he gets a phone call that he can come down and pick up his daughter's belongings from the police station. He goes down and he takes his box of her stuff and her backpack and all, which had bullet holes through it and her blood on it, and put it in his truck. And he dug into her backpack. He wanted to see the journal that she had left in there, wanted to see the last entry in her journal. He starts flipping through this journal, and he gets to the last entry and he stops. It's a drawing of 2 eyes that are crying 13 teardrops. 13 people died at Columbine.
Wow.
And it's watering a rose, America's national flower. But the rose is not growing out of the ground, it's growing out of another flower. That flower is called the Columbine, the state flower of Colorado. But when the teardrops passed the rose and as they dropped to the ground, they were colored in. And an educator told Darrell, said, because he always thought they were blood drops, didn't know that those are seeds, because blood doesn't grow, but seeds grow, and Rachel's challenge has grown from those seeds. He's sitting in his truck, and he'll tell you, he goes, I sat there and hyperventilated for 30 minutes because this man 1,500 miles away calls me and describes to me something in my daughter's journal. How do you know?
Right.
He went and he made a copy of it and he faxed it over to Frank. Remember, this is 1999. We're still using faxes.
Right.
And he called him, and Frank's crying. You can hear his family in the background crying. I said, did you get it? He goes, yes. That's it. The dream stopped.
Wow.
Frank became one of the early seed capital providers for Rachel's Challenge to get it off the ground. He's a very good man. So there's so many odd stories that you just absolutely, you know, there's something bigger at work here than what we can ever prove. A rabbi went to Darrell and said he had traced back on the Jewish calendar 2,000 years to the day from the date of Columbine, which was April 20th of 1999. Traced it back, and remember, 1 teacher and 12 students died at Columbine. And this rabbi said, 2,000 years to the day backwards, the greatest teacher who ever lived died, and he had 12 students. Talking about Jesus.
Wow.
Crazy. Just crazy cool stuff. There's a story of, we don't have time for all these stories because I've just got tons of them, but you
know what's crazy too is I feel with this whole Charlie Kirk stuff and the shooting and that so many people felt it to the core, including myself, and I have never met the guy or even heard when someone said Charlie Kirk died. I'm like, who's that? Like, I mean, I didn't even know. And then it was like the minute I saw the news and saw the information, it was like, for 2 days I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was just told, you know, my grandmother had passed away or something. And ironically that you bring up that we are talking about Rachel's thing, because this year, Easter, which is the day that Jesus rises from the grave, and that was on 4/20.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
So, yes.
That was Hitler's birthday. That's why the 2 shooters did Columbine on April 20th. They wanted to honor their hero. They had really become, the term is radicalized, I guess, but they had thought that Hitler got it right. And these guys were just, you know, they ended up killing themselves, but they were just obsessed and overcome with evil. Let me tell you one last story.
Definitely.
This is a story not everybody gets. So Darrell told me a story, the first board meeting I went to, which was 2015. He said, I was in, you know, the day of her funeral, there had been some credible threats of violence at her funeral. So the Colorado State Police said, Mr. Scott, we have a room just for you and your family, and anybody you put on the list will be allowed into the room, but nobody else will be allowed in there. And so he said, you know, we didn't have all these in-laws and outlaws in, so our list was pretty small, maybe 15 people or so. So we're in this room, not much bigger than the room we're in here. He said there were couches and chairs. He said, I'm sitting there and I've got my head down and I'm holding Sandy's hand. Sandy's was Rachel's stepmom, his second wife. I'm holding her hand, and all of a sudden I feel this presence across from me. I look up and I see this man with this Middle Eastern face. He's wearing a pinstripe suit. He looks at me, he looks at Sandy, he looks back at me and said, they were after her, but she's okay now. He said, I had this weird feeling of peace overcome me when he said this. And I looked down, I just kind of shook my head yes and put my head back down. And then he said, I looked up, I'm like, who the hell was that guy? He's gone. And he's looking through the room, he's not there. And so they go to the two doors where there are armed guards and said, did a man that fits this description just leave here? I said, sir, no one's been in or out of this room for 30 minutes.
Wow.
He said, I am convinced it was an angel that came and spoke to me. Because he not only did he speak to me, Sandy heard him too. It gets weirder. So the first, that was the first board meeting I went to, and I flew back to Austin that night, and I met a friend of mine for a drink and for dinner, and so we're standing at the bar, and he's like, well, how was the first board meeting? And I'm telling about it, and I tell him this story. And my friend's eyes are getting big, and I go, look, I'm not making this up, okay?
Yeah, you're like...
He said, no. He said, I heard a story 7 years ago, which I always thought was bullshit until now. My friend Mark said, he said, I had a friend in Louisiana whose daughter was killed in a car wreck, and my friend told me the story of the day of her funeral. He was doing whatever he could to not go to the funeral. He just did not want to go say his final goodbye to his daughter. Finally, his wife says, honey, I've laid your suit out. You need to go get cleaned up. We've got to go. And he says, okay. My friend said he's walking down the hallway, headed to his shower, and a man walks out of his bedroom. And he has a fuchsia colored shirt on, very bright pink. And all the man could think was, what a strange colored shirt. And this guy stops him and looks at him and says, they were after her, but she's okay now. He said, my friends, he said he shook his head and went and got in the shower, and then kind of came to life and goes, who the hell was that guy?
Yeah.
And so he goes out and he asks his wife and his other daughter, who was that guy with the fuchsia colored shirt? He goes, honey, there's been nobody here. Think about that. Two stories, very similar,
Yes.
7 years apart. What are the odds? I can't calculate. I studied statistics. I can't calculate the odds on that one.
No.
How bizarre that I would know the same story, learn the same story from a friend of mine who had just heard the story the same day from another friend of mine.
That's crazy. Wow.
There are 32 million people have experienced Rachel's story. And the organization gets hundreds of messages every year from kids who plan to take their own life, oftentimes the very day that the presenter showed up in school.
Wow.
But they realize that their life has meaning, it has purpose. They're here for something greater than themselves. And it's not a religious program, it's not a political program.
Mm-mm.
They're in school, so they got to keep that out. But you can't miss the story, you can't miss the piece of it that connects all of us. You see bullying go down 80, 90, 100%. You see grades start to go up because kids aren't living in a constant state of fight or flight. Mm-hmm. See, every day 160,000 kids skip school because they're afraid of being bullied. Now you've got kids that are willing to go to school. There's stories, we get letters. One girl, and I would be pretty close on the ages and stuff, but she wrote a letter to Rachel's Challenge saying I had planned to take my own life, but after hearing Rachel's story decided I wouldn't. She was living in Las Vegas. She lived in a crappy little motel with her dad, who's a heroin addict, who was in and out of the picture. Her mom had bailed a long time before, and it had a little brother who was like 5 years old. And this is the thinking of a 11, 12-year-old girl. So she said, I decided I was going to take my own life because I figured that if I did, Family Protective Services would come get my little brother, and they'd place him in a home, and he'd have 3 meals a day, and he'd be cared for and loved. I mean, she had no idea that it wasn't going to turn out that way, but that's what she thought.
Right.
And she said, after I heard Rachel's story, I said, you know what? I can't leave him. I can't leave him like this. I've got to gut it out and stick it out. And she did. And she went on and graduated high school and went to college and ended up taking care of her brother.
Wow.
So there's stories that come out of it that are just, it's too many. We don't have enough digital space in the country to go through all of them, but we get stories like that all the time from kids. Youth suicide has become the #2 killer of kids in 2016, and it rages on. And it's just heartbreaking when you see the carnage that a child leaves when they take their own life.
Yes.
But her story affects you. It changes things. Like I say, 9 averted school shootings, hundreds of lives every year that we know of
Right.
that have been saved because of her story. And these are the kids that take time to send a message in. Probably 10 to 20, 100 times more don't. So
And how old was Rachel?
she was 17.
So 17 through all of this, and it's like even a journal for a 17-year-old isn't that common. I mean, realistically, and for her to have so many, I mean, there really is no explanation. You know what I'm saying? Because again, I mean, look, we were just preaching over here for adults to write in a journal, let alone kids, you know. And I mean, definitely, that's crazy. And then even the dates as of this year and us talking about this, like that was bizarre, because that was the first thing I thought of was, oh my God, this year was Easter even, and here we're talking about it.
Darryl is actually the lead of my chapter on forgiveness, because he and I'd thrown an event in Austin years back. It was May of 2015, and we're sitting in the restaurant having lunch or whatever, and between events, and he was talking about all the things he wants Rachel's Challenge to do. And he's a great visionary. Darryl's an extremely bright man, but he's a great visionary, and all the programs he wants Rachel's Challenge to implement. And he said something that just floored me. It's embedded in here forever. He said, you know, John, all the good that Rachel's story has done, all the lives it's saved, he said, none of this would have been possible if I had not found it in my heart to forgive the two shooters who murdered my daughter.
Wow.
That's forgiveness at a level most of us will never have to reach. None of this would have been possible if I had not found it in my heart to forgive the two shooters who murdered my daughter. And that's, you know, anybody can bring good from good. Mm-hmm. Only God can bring good from evil.
Yes.
Those two shooters, they made a bunch of videos, and they had pipe bombs that they had perfected. There were supposed to be 2 pipe bombs that went off that day in the school cafeteria, and they both failed, and they had perfected it. Something bigger was at work here, again, even in that moment, because they figured that the pipe bombs would go off and kids would come pouring out of the cafeteria, and they were sitting there on this little knoll with their weapons pointed. They were just going to start picking kids off. 200 kids could have been killed that day.
Yes.
And even though it was 12 kids and 1 teacher, too many, it could have been much, much worse. But since the pipe bombs didn't detonate, they picked up all their stuff and just started marching in toward the school. And Rachel was the first child that they, that they encountered, and they shot her 4 times point blank. And,
Wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, so much good has come from this. Darryl would love to have his daughter back, but he doesn't have that privilege.
Right. Right.
He's one of the coolest guys I've ever met in my life. I mean, just a really neat man. I actually interviewed him for my show. That was, I think I put it out in either April or March of 2024, which was right before the 25th anniversary of Columbine.
Wow.
People can go back and they can find that and learn more about the organization and about Darryl and you know what his life was like. And it was insane. CNN literally, kid you not, was parked on his front lawn for a year.
Oh, I bet.
After Columbine.
My sister was one of the jurors in the Rod Blagojevich stuff that was all over here, and they were parked outside my parents' house forever. I'm like, will these people go home, please? You know, it was like, man, my poor sister actually stopped to go. She moved basically out. I mean, stayed with friends and stuff because she was just like, she couldn't even go home.
They'll
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were,
They'll hound you. Yeah,
and they were literally, they were atrocious.
They
those,
can be relentless.
Those media fools. No, I'm just kidding. So as we wrap up today, can you give our listeners one small, powerful reminder that you carry with you that you learned on your journey so far between Rachel's Challenge, your history, even your podcast, things that you've been through with other individuals? What is something that you could give these listeners, a powerful reminder based on your journey that will help them know that they're enough and that help and love is out there for them?
Sure. There's a couple parts to that one, and you never know what you're going to be asked on this. Carrie did not give me the questions ahead of time, but I'd rather it be that way because that way it's coming from the heart. So a couple of things. First of all, as far as self-acceptance goes, and you got to get there on your own. You got to remember that God, our Creator, who is perfect, made each of us exactly how He wanted us to be.
Yes.
And here's another one for you. God doesn't even have second thoughts. He doesn't think twice about the way that He created each one. He gave us the parents He wanted us to have so that good can come from our stories. But once you can connect your head to your heart on that one and realize that's how God the Creator looks at me and goes, there's my boy, that's my girl, you know, then there's a second part to that that is equally important, and that is look at your fellow man the same way, because He made them too. Mm-hmm. He created them exactly how they wanted them to be. And if you can do that, then self-acceptance will go into the stratospheres for you, but also your ability to connect and see people through a different lens when you look at them. But the second part is this. Remember, I said I'm more ambitious now than ever have been in my life. Well, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people that Dr. Stephen Covey wrote about in 1994 was begin with the end in mind. Think of where you want to get to, and you always be striving for that. When you think about something you want to do, like what do I want my podcast to do? I just want it to spread encouragement, strength, and hope. Mm-hmm. I don't monetize it. I do it because it's like some people play golf, some people fish, some people play tennis. I don't do any of those things. I podcast. It's my hobby, and I love doing it because I'm insatiably curious. But begin with the end in mind, and I always say, how do you want to be remembered? And I would put the question back to myself. On my headstone, I want it just to say, my epitaph to say, he cared. 2 words. Beautiful. He cared. So all the bottoms up babes out there.
I'm going to have to change this podcast just because of you. No.
I like it.
Well, and it's funny too because people think bottoms up like, drinking or something, and they're like, wait, hold on, this is like a motivational thing. I'm like, yes, because it's actually for people that have come from the bottom up. I mean, we've all been in dark places, and maybe you didn't all go all the way to the rock bottom. Maybe you caught yourself midway, whatever. Either way, all of us have been through some sort of transition in life and just darkness and encountered struggle and whatever words you want to use. And how did we move from that? And it's these type of inspiring stories that give that hope and that light and that that love that people crave. That's one thing. If you talk to a recovering drug addict, if you talk to a recovering abusive individual, if you talk to anyone in that nature that came from the struggle, the one thing that they will say is what saved me was love. Mm-hmm. Love showed me that I can be loved, that I am worthy, that I am better than these drugs, or whatever you want to say, and the forgiveness. They found love and forgiveness in their heart for, Rachel's murders and so forth. That is the answer. And it's like you tell people that, but until you physically understand it at a core level and realize that in order to get ahead, you have to love yourself, love your neighbor. It's not written in the Bible for a reason, and it's not even, I tell people too all the time, like, I am not this preacher, Bible thumper, holy roller, never sinned in my life person. Like, I'm telling you this because that's the one book. I'll be honest, I never read it front to back. I've took chapters here and there and everywhere. I've never sat there and read the book from beginning to start. And for that reason alone, I never felt like I could be blessed enough to preach it or to talk about it. But really, God doesn't want that. He doesn't want you to preach this Bible that has been in different versions of other people's mouths. Like, it's finding that love inside of yourself and spreading that, especially now in this world that we are in that's so dark. And it's like, you gotta find that light. The light is the only way that's going to bring you out. And it's so funny because I always think of like the poltergeist, Carol Ann, come to the light. Come to the light, Carol Ann. But it's so true. It really is.
It is.
It's like, and I've even told people, I have actually saved 4 people to date from narcissistic abusers that have left their abusers, and I've saved literally their lives. And I don't even want to preach it in that aspect, but why I'm emphasizing on this is because I tell them exactly that. Listen, you have to listen to my voice. Like, you have to literally come to the light of what I'm telling you to and what I'm trying to get in your head, because that is what's going to save you. And they go back, and it's crazy because I swear God gave me that scenario and that situation to know, because they don't even have to say anything. I'm like, you slept with them yesterday, didn't you? You called them yesterday. Like, I know. And that's the creepy thing. Like, and I've never met these people in my life. I've never, ever. But I call them out, and they're like silent. Like, they're like, how did you know that? Like it's almost like I hate to even say it, because I'm like, they probably think I'm standing outside their door or something, you know? But honestly, John, like, that is how I save them. And they will say, I kid you not, Carrie, I had to listen to your voice, and I had to listen to what you were telling me and do what you were telling me. And finally, when I started letting your words become my reality and doing that, that is what helped me leave. That is what helped me get ahead of the abuser. And I'm telling you, they're all like, I always say, a Mad Libs book. And for those that don't know what Mad Libs is, you just kind of put in the adjectives, right? I don't need to know your abuser, but they're like a Mad Libs book. They just pick a new person and they input whatever.
They have a pattern, very predictable pattern.
They have a pattern, and that is like, it's repetitious pattern for whoever they are. And so when they start realizing that, they're like, oh my God, I wish I would have listened to you last year, or whatever, you know, however long it was a process for. But yes, I mean, it's such a blessing for me, because it's like, I tell them, like, listen to my voice, like, listen to, you know, come to the light. I'm going to bring you out of this darkness, but you have to listen to me. And that's it. That's even with a drug addict. You can bring them to therapy over and over again, bring them to rehab, and bring them, but until they see that light within themselves and they fully know the love, or seek even just some sort of crease of light, they're not going, it's a dead end. They're just gonna get out and repeat the same cycle again.
But once they do see it and they make that decision for themselves, then they own it.
Yes.
It becomes part of who they are.
Yes.
And so that's the key. So thank you for letting me come on and
Absolutely.
talk about the book and talk about all these other things that we talked about.
Yes.
And meet the bottoms up babes.
Yeah. I'm just gonna hear you saying that all the time. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. And I will put your website, I will put your podcast, I'll put the book, I'll put all of that stuff. And that was just really creepy, because we just had a bird fly past our window. Did you see that?
I did.
I literally looked up like, oh my God. But anyway, so I will put all of your information so people can reach out to you and find your information.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. I appreciate you
put my
coming
email
here.
address up there as well.
Yes, email as well, yes.
John's story is such a powerful reminder that even in the darkest beginnings, hope can rise, and it could also lead to greater possibilities for ourselves. His resilience, self-healing, and work in Rachel's Challenge shows us that one life, many choices, and acts of kindness can change the world. Thank you for listening today. If this conversation has moved you, I encourage you to share it with someone who may need to hear, and let them know that they're not alone, that healing is possible. Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us for more stories of hope and transformation. Until next time, remember that you are worthy, your story matters, and you have the power to make a difference.